So let's first talk about England's geography, and I think the most important characteristic is going to be these natural harbors, because this is what really allows us to push quite a lot of control, and the fact that we have them is extremely important. You notice also there is quite a lot of this in kind of areas where we might expand. This really allows us to have strong power bases elsewhere. Generally speaking, you kind of have your capital, and then you generally have a market on top of your capital, and then what you do is you have really high both market access and control in these locations, and this allows you to get a ton of value out of the area, and this is something that you really, really like. With England, you can get a lot more market slash power bases, or the way you kind of think about it, in other places like Antwerp, by virtue of them having really good natural harbors. And so you can kind of have this, you get to double dip and have multiple places where you have really high control and really high market access, because we only have to go through 1, 2, 3 sea zones in order to get to Antwerp. Going through a sea zone itself, if we take a look at the proximity map mode, is not extremely expensive once we have access to, once we'll have access to a lot of maritime presence. This will get reduced from 15 to 0. This will get increased from 2.5 to 5, and so it'll only have to go spend 5 to go through. So we will have 100 proximity entering the sea zone. Eventually, once we stack all of our modifiers, will cost 0, and then it will be 5 here, 10, 15, 20, and then disembarking will be something where the harbors come into play. Here you can see we have 75% harbor capacity, so instead of costing full 40, it's going to cost just 10. So 5, 10, 15, 20, and then 10. We will have 70 proximity here, kind of once we get things up and going a little bit more, and once we have maritime presence, which is quite a lot of proximity, but same idea for Antwerp, right? 5, 10, 15, or 5, 10, right? And then just into Antwerp, since we will have a good enough natural harbor, that will be free, and we will be able to have 90 proximity in Antwerp. And as we look at some of the other terrain, we will see just how valuable this is. But looking back at the natural harbors, having a really good one in London and having them all kind of in our expansion areas and up here is going to be valuable. We kind of have a little bit of a dead zone up here, but even still, once we start stacking a bunch of modifiers, we will be able to project proximity there. And as you can see, this is in fact how we are getting proximity here, and we are getting 18%, not a huge amount, but as we get a bunch more once we get a much more maritime presence, things will look up quite a bit. We start with 50 in all of our locations. We need to get this up to 100, and this is going to be a main kind of thing that we are concerning ourselves with when we are playing England. But to come and look at some of our other stuff, in terms of topography, lots of flatland. This is really nice for us. We do have some hills in here, but these are hills that we are going to be, projecting control through by just looping around England, and we are going to be just coming in from the inland, so they're not really blocking us too badly in terms of the additional proximity impact. Because it's calculated based on where you're coming from, not where you're going to. So hills on a coast, it doesn't matter. It doesn't make a difference. We also have a big chunk of grassland, farmland, at our power base here, or our seat of power here in England, or in around London. And so this is going to be really nice land. The combination of these two is going to be pretty good. And then as we get kind of places that are mainly going to be coastal, it becomes a little bit less important that we have good stuff for proximity, but the grasslands and also the farmlands are going to be good because they get more dev growth. And so these are going to be good places for cities, for urban areas, and we are going to probably line the coast with urban areas, because with urban areas, we can get buildings like the wharf, which are going to give a little bit of harbor capacity. We do have a wharf up here somewhere. If we take a look here, it is going to be... Where is it? There you is. And so this is going to help with the harbor capacity stuff here that we have in Boston. Now, as far as the resources go, we're kind of in a spot where we're probably a little bit above average, largely by virtue of having so much wool. Wool is one of the better food resources, if not the best food resource. It is going to give 5 food, and it is also going to be giving 2.5 in terms of its sell price, but it feeds into all the textile industries, and virtually every single one of our provinces, or a majority of our provinces, will have at least one unit of wool in them. And so this part is very, very nice because we will get production efficiency on all that. Kind of a little overabundant as far as food goes. We don't really need this much wheat. Happy to have the livestock here, but we have a middling amount of iron, or a pretty good amount of iron, but outside of that, we don't have anything that is premium or premium adjacent. We have plenty of tin, which is good for, maintaining a large navy, as is the copper, I do believe also gets used in. So does the fiber crops, but you can get fiber crops from buildings. And so, as it stands, our resources are pretty good. We have a couple premiums in here. We have 2 silver and a third if you consider Ireland part of England, which is offensive to some people. And then we don't really have much in the way of stuff like dyes or, silks or stuff like this, unless you start considering areas across the channel. And so that will be a thing. We have a lot of coal, though, which will scale really, really well once you get to the 6th age. This is kind of a little bit of an interesting thing, and I do believe weaponsmiths do use them. And there's a couple other industries that use coal early on, and so this will be something that is quite distinct from most starts, because for most countries, if they have coal, they have like 1 or 2 piles. We have a ton of piles, and so that is going to be a little bit interesting as far as the resources are related, but it is mainly just like the really standout thing is just the enormous amount of wool. This is really an absolute ton of wool, and happy to have it, and so we will be expanding this, and then expanding textiles, and then trying to dump textiles into other people's markets, because we can get the price, just to kind of emphasize, we can get the price of wool lower than a lot of other countries, because RGOs do not have any inputs. So you can build RGOs into oblivion, and you can get the price as low as possible, and it doesn't make it so that the RGO is unprofitable and doesn't employ or something like this. The RGO will always employ. Because of that, we can get wool way cheaper. If wool is way cheaper, then what we can do is we can get the Spinners Guild, which is using wool to produce this, we can get it to have a really, really cheap input. If its input is at minus 75% price, then that means we can get cloth down lower before the building becomes unprofitable. And if we can get cloth way lower than other people's markets, we can then export it to their market, and then this can make all of their buildings unprofitable by virtue of us decreasing the price of cloth in their market, because they don't have the cheap wool like we do. Now, of course, I do think that they would just import our wool and then just build the cloth themselves, and we don't have a good way to be protectionist to be about our wool, but this is an effect or something you can look towards, and also you will generally have a lot more trade capacity than the AI, so your dumping will exceed their ability to import your wool, and so if you stack enough modifiers and you are kind of careful about where you put stuff and this type of thing, you also should maybe be able to get the wool to stop from collapsing in price so much, but still be able to collapse the price of the cloth such that you can really dump to other people's markets. And so, in terms of a macro strategy that's going to be related to your resources, you're probably really pushing textiles and really trying to dump them into other people's markets. And then you have enough of kind of like the stuff like iron and also wood, lumber, to have a very comfortable experience as it relates to your other resources, but you're not going to really just be banging out a ton of money with stuff like silver and spices and these types of things, just in terms of how your resources feel overall. Hello and welcome back. Today we are going to be doing a starting steps / first 50 as England. England is one of the strongest starts in Europe. They really benefit a lot from a geographical position and get rewarded very, very heavily for going into a naval focus. As far as content goes, they have some of the best military in the entire game by virtue of having really, really good unique units. And so this is kind of their main advantage. They do have a few things going on in terms of economy that are particularly good, but they start off with infantry power tech. They also start off with a policy that gives them combat power on their levies, which the infantry levies just become absolutely insane, and they start with extraordinarily strong levies because they are heavy infantry levies, but they get a ton of initiative, or they're regular infantry levies, but they get a ton of initiative on top of this, so they get into battle really quickly, they start dealing damage really quickly, and then they have plus 20% combat ability per the bonuses that England has, and so this is quite strong. They also get a lot of bonuses as it relates to Navy, stuff like heavy ship power in a lot of different locations, and so this is the primary benefit of them. They do get economic bonuses like this production efficiency bonus in Age 4, that's quite strong for the time period here. A lot of people get age 6 production efficiency of 10%. England doesn't quite get that, but England gets some other stuff going on, minus naval maintenance, so you can have, a much bigger army, 11% bigger, this type of thing. The equilibrium satisfaction's nice because they do get 10% all max tax on a policy. We'll be looking at that in just a second. Here you can see a little bit more naval stuff, the naval initiative helping you in the battles, and in age 6 or in age 5 and 6, you really get some of these really big output bonuses on a couple of techs for both tools and also for cloth, which is going to be quite strong for you as you enter the late game. And then this might just be the unit that is just strongest or most strong relative to the baseline unit out of any unit I've seen in terms of unique units, and that's the experimental rifleman in age of 6. So it is at the end of the game, it is quite light, but you get plus 250% on your flanking. That's 150% more than the normal infantry gets, and you get plus 10 on initiative. And so this is really, really strong. The redcoat's all right too, but this one is a really, really big standout in terms of what you have going on. Most of their unique government reforms really aren't that good, but we do have stuff like the Navy board allowing you to push naval easier and more discounted naval maintenance. And so if you get more and more discounts on naval maintenance, this effectively makes the modifier more and more effective. And so this is something to keep an eye on. They, in terms of their unique stuff, have minus 20% discount on naval maintenance. That is kind of a big one. Here is another source of heavy ship power and also sailors, allowing them to have a bigger navy. These types of things really kind of help out a lot. I do think that that is mostly what we have in terms of stuff that is valuable. This one's kind of okay in terms of government reform, but that's mostly what we have in the government reforms. And then we have some unique stuff that is not going to be shown in here, stuff that is policies, and then stuff like unique buildings like the Globe Theater, which is just absolutely spectacular. Not something we're often evaluating in terms of run starts, but the Globe Theater giving 10% max literacy for kind of our lower class is going to be quite valuable, because literacy is quite valuable, and a little bit of monthly literacy too in the location, but it's mainly about the increased literacy for your entire nation. So with all that said, let's jump in. We get the little England here and the flashbang. So in the laws, our policy for English Parliament and distribution of power is going to be very strong, but not early on. This minus crown power is too painful early on into the game, but 10% max tax on everyone, a little bit of legitimacy and agenda impact is going to be quite powerful, and so this will be strong later, but our first Parliament, we're likely to yoink that out. The law that is giving us a levy combat efficiency is, in fact, longbow competitions, which, incidentally, this is going to apply to any noble levies we have as well, not just the longbowmen, because it's just levy combat efficiency, not like peasant levy, anything like this. Now, as far as our estates go, we don't have anything too crazy at the outset in terms of start. We do start with Magna Carta. This seems reasonably good in the early game when we really, really value the Parliament support, because we want to change laws, do a whole bunch of things, and then it kind of falls off in power level because having parliaments where you get 50 or 100 or 150 support, the higher 100, 150 supports becomes less important, but we'll really love to have it. For now, we will hold off on slotting in another reform, waiting for the next age where a lot of the better ones kind of come in. And then we don't have anything too crazy going on, except for we have yeomanry, which is going to be giving us additional satisfaction at the cost of a noble satisfaction. More than happy to be receiving this. It will progress us towards free subjects. I think that we can't afford to go serfdom in terms of what we're doing, especially because we are getting peasant max tax from our unique kind of stuff. And because we're getting that, it decreases the value of peasant max tax and increases the value of satisfaction. But something I did want to point out is normally on most starts, we would just revoke communal lands from the very opener, right? And we still might do it relatively early, but we see that that's an expensive revoke privilege. We could probably get a lot of other people, or we could get other estates more powerful and dilute the power of the yeomanry down below 9% so that we can revoke this a little bit cheaper. So instead of pushing centralization immediately, which we would do for most starts, we are going to be pushing naval. And this is also going to be nice because once we get naval to kind of like the cap that we already have a person working on it in terms of the our cabinet. Once we get it to this 16 value, then anything we get from Parliament is going to be just pure gravy. So we're going to change the title values there. We are going to strengthen the government so we can pass out more reforms quicker. We are going to be putting our ruler in charge of the Navy. Now, we want him in charge of either the Army or the Navy, but we would rather he roll a naval trait, so we'll put him in charge of the Navy. And the reason we're doing this is for that juicy plus 25% modifier from them having command. We'll try and keep the Navy relatively safe, though. That should be easy. Now, we are going to delete most of our forts, so that should go down to about 1. We're going to go 0 on our Diplo spend. If this keeps all of our guys loyal, it looks like it does. Max out the cost of court spend, and then we will click all the buttons and do the thing with the minting where we increase it. And so this should give us a slight positive balance at the end of all these things, especially the deletion of all the forts that are going to be not in London, I think. So we'll get right on that. We also notice that a decent chunk of our expenses here is actually in cathedral maintenance, and cathedrals, they provide conversion, they provide migration, attraction, but we honestly don't really need that right now. So what we're going to do is we're just going to shutter the cathedrals, we're just going to close them all, and then that way we will save ourselves around 2.4 ducats. So if we take a little bit of an unpause and let things kind of shake up a little bit, we should be in a slight positive. Let's consider how we want to spend our kind of starting money here. So, for our first spend / philosophy, we want to build roads. And so what we're doing is we are getting stuff set up so that we can build roads. We aren't going to be able to push maritime for some time, and so roads are going to be our friend in the kind of interim before we can get that. This is our starting road situation. And so what we're doing is we're building a little bit of masons, because these are an input for the roads. Although our masonry price was already collapsed, we're building a little bit of lumber RGOs, kind of same idea there, and we're building quite a few sand RGOs out, because sand is the thing that is not collapsed in price. We also want to add a little bit of glass so that we can build out marketplaces. We need to get a little bit more glass into the market to be able to do this. And in the capital, we are pushing one level of tools, 2 levels of glass, really just trying to solve the inputs. Normally in the capital, kind of at the outset, what we would do is we would build fine cloth, but I think what we're going to do is we're going to build fine cloth out of some of these other locations, because taking a look here, there's no wool RGO on the capital. So what we're probably going to do is build fine cloth out of a place like Oxford, or out of a place like anywhere else that also just has wool, because all these places have wool, but not in the capital. So that will be a little bit of an adjustment we make. We're also, in terms of the premiums, going for 2 levels in both the saffron and the silver, and also the closest 3 wool we are expanding out. But as we kind of look forward, we're going to mainly be doing roads out from the capital to nearby locations, specifically emphasizing these urban locations here. So this is the road system we have. We do have a couple of kind of areas on the road, but we would love to just build up, and every single place that's urban, like Oxford is not connected, we would want to connect that. We would want to connect the saffron, we would want to connect these urban areas, and so this is what we will be working towards, in addition to having these also start to expand out into the fine cloth. And so that's what we'll be doing economically here for some time. Our research open isn't going to be anything too weird. We're going to go for the diplomats first, into the guilds, and then the next age should be hitting around this point, and we will probably do new age stuff until we can get the institutions available, at which point we'll put in the institution growth, and if we ever get squeezed on dip cap, we will come in here for the diplomatic capacity as well. For our initial estate handout, we're actually going to hand out a ton of estate privileges because we are giving out noble navy at the start, because we're pushing naval at the start. We can end up giving out a whole lot of stuff, because that gives 15 satisfaction to the nobles. The noble satisfaction is generally what gets squeezed, what gets pressured here. I think that we will want great works of faith at some point in the near future for the centralization, so we'll just hand that out now. We will want a couple burgher privileges. In particular, we do want treasury rights, because tax efficiency is strong, and then we want urban development grants. Get started right away on getting a little bit more development in our life, and then I think we will take a little bit of a gander, the kind of the satisfactions come down quite a bit, so maybe we leave it at that. We will eventually want to start adding more to the yeomanry, this type of thing, and so the additional satisfaction will allow us to tax the burghers more, also will allow us to tax the lords more. If we take a little bit of an unpause and we are taxing 50%, these taxes will come up, so a little bit more income for us, and this is what we'll be looking for, is we're going to be handing out privileges, specifically if any of these is at equilibrium 50%, that means there's a little bit more max tax for us to work with, right? And so when this is the case, we generally want to hand out privileges, a little bit less to the lords or a lot of it less to the lords, but specifically with the burghers and the yeomanry, so this is going to be the general heuristic we take off on. And then let's take a couple months to just kind of see where our trade income comes to. We get that huge trade pump, and then here comes the huge trade dump as it comes back down and stuff readjusts. We will, of course, defy the French king and get ready to invade France. As is kind of traditional start, we will be, you know, rumbling and a bumbling with France here. So that's going to be what we're working towards. We have conquered the throne of France as a CB. I think they will deck on us if we don't deck on them. And so we'll have a little bit of consideration. We'll also rival someone up here. Probably looking to rival someone relatively small that isn't going to interfere with us too much, like Scania. And so eventually they will become ineligible, but for now, that works for us. I think we'll take a marriage with Denmark here. We would love to get a personal union on them going because we can eventually project control there, but more of a long-term expansion plan. Considered Brabant, but I think Brabant's going to be a little bit more of a short-term expand for us in between, you know, wars with France. We're also going to create a little bit of a fiefdom up here in the north, where we do not have a full core. You can see here, this is not integrated. We would rather our subject integrate this, and so we will make them a little bit of a fief that will do the integrating for us. Eventually, we will need to integrate them. I think that in terms of Diplo, let's get a little expenditures down. I think we want to integrate this guy relatively early, so can we just start off with that? Yeah, let's just start annexing them. Well, we actually can't really project much control up there. Had to think it, I think it's fine. We're going to have control up there relatively soon, like within the next 100 years, by virtue of pushing maritime presence, and while we won't have it immediately, getting started on these annexations immediately when we have several to go and when we're planning on adding subjects is probably worth it. Just for like demonstration purposes, we're taking a look at Oxford now. What's the profitable buildings for us to build? You can see the Tailors Guild, +8 for the fine cloth. And so this is what we mean by, this is kind of what we want to push early. We are going to be gated or throttled by burger promotions in a lot of these locations. But as you can see, they're all giving enormous amounts, even though they aren't right on top of the capital in terms of, you know, this would be considerably more if it was in the capital and we had more market access and power projection. But as it stands now, we're going to kind of in all of these surrounding places just slowly trickle up the fine cloth. In the capital, we could also see just kind of some of the differential here. 8.73 instead of the low 8s because we have better market access and control there. Actually, if it's only 8.73, I suspect... Oh, this is 8.73, taking into account the fact that it's going to have 10% less production efficiency than these areas. I was about to say that I don't think it's really taking into account all the market access and control, but this place is still more profitable, even though we are getting 10% production efficiency in these other locations where we have the inputs. And this just goes to show how valuable it is to build stuff in the capital. We are maybe going to push fine cloth in the capital, but I think what we'll end up doing is pushing like jewelry and tools, something like this, in terms of our expands, and then also books and paper, and then that will kind of probably saturate what we have going on, just because we have so many opportunities for fine cloth locations with all this wool, and we have less opportunities for something like tools because we don't have iron everywhere, and we have less opportunities for paper because we don't have wood and also fiber crops everywhere, and so just in terms of making sure the other stuff or our other opportunities are nice, is probably why we will try not to push fine cloth in the capital, although for most countries pushing fine cloth in the capital makes sense because most countries don't have all this going on. England just has a ton of unique buildings. Here we see one of them, the Grand Apartment we can build in London, which is going to give us plus 100% crown power, but only in that location. Now, we're going to build up London a lot, so it's going to disproportionately contribute to our overall power, so this is going to be nice for us, but that is going to not, like, tremendously shape the nation like 100% modifier looks like it ought to. Our crown power is up to 16% from the starting 14, largely off the fact that we gave this guy control of the navy, but as we build more, specifically in areas with high control, this will help to bring it up, because the burghers, just the flat contribution of the burghers in terms of the pops will contribute more power overall to the pie, and as you contribute burger power, you will also contribute crown power, and so having more of these burgers in close to the capital is going to help out. And this is also one of the reasons why we want to build the roads, because we will be getting higher crown power modifiers in areas where we have a lot of burgers, we'll have a lot of pops, we have more aristocrats and nobles in these cities and this type of stuff, and so this is a big reason why we want the roads. Now, we're building a little bit of fine cloth out first, but once we kind of build some of this out, then at a certain point, rather than adding one of these, just increasing the control in the location will actually generate more income than adding more marginal buildings, and this is also a point at which roads become better. Also, we are going to eventually be pushing proximity through naval, and we are already to some extent, but the market access still is going to be coming primarily through the roads. So if we take a look here, okay, the proximity is going this way, but if we take a look at the market, we see that, hey, it's not going all the way around here, it's actually looping over land, and we can find locations where we are pushing entirely over land, like in Spalding, where if we were to get, in terms of proximity, we will be pushing it via, the naval here, and this is also without any road connection to Spalding, so it'll get even better once there's a road connection in terms of how much it costs us to push things along the market. It's generally not a huge discount to push stuff over the seas in the same way it is with proximity, and so as a result of this, even though we will be pushing stuff navally, we will still want roads like everywhere in England for the purposes of increasing the market access everywhere, and so this is also something that we'll be focusing on. So we want to build roads, but sand prices seem like they're going to be a little bit sticky with us here. So we're going to look in the market and try and diagnose this a little bit, and we're going to see the burghers are actually importing a lot of sand. So what this means is, beyond the amount of sand we would need to produce in order to collapse the price, we're going to have to produce this much, because we'll have to eat through the burger import first, because as we build one more sand, they'll stop importing one. So we're not actually going to get more sand until we overcome this burger import. And also we notice, hey, we didn't pay close enough attention here, because in the market, this sand is not actually, we built it, it's actually in the Dublin market. We were building it to try and help ourselves out, but it's only this sand that's going to help us out here. So to solve our sand problem, which I think we do want to do, because we're going to build a lot of roads, and sand will make the roads much less expensive, we're going to build sand pits. And if we take a look at the inputs on the sand pits, we see that it's wooden tools. So we're going to want to build them in locations that have woods specifically as RGOs, and the place that's closest to the market is going to be here. Since this is a building, not an RGO, it's going to be affected by market access, where lack of market access is going to make it so we produce less sand. So we want it as close to the market capital as possible. With the RGO, we don't care. Market access won't decrease the amount of RGO outputs, but for a building, even though sand is both a building output and an RGO output, when it's a building output, you want it close to the market capital. So this is the lumber that's closest to the market capital, so what we'll be doing is we will be starting to expand out the sand pits in these locations, which incidentally, this is also where we put the masonry for the same reason, because there is stone here. So gonna be kind of pressured in this province here for laborers, because we're expanding both masonry here and also sand pit here. In fact, I think I've convinced myself that we maybe would be better kind of suited putting the sand over here in this province where there is the lumber over here, and so we will be doing that. So we'll add probably 4 sand pits in these 4 locations that are closest to the market capital in order to get the price of sand to start coming down. Alright, as expected, France declares on us. Now, the way that we kind of look at this in terms of us decking versus them decking is we would be content to let it go to Parliament, and so we would be content to let our Parliament hit. In fact, it's only 5 months from now, because then we could go for increased levies. But as it stands, the really, really key and important thing here is, as quickly as possible, we want to get all of our men on the mainland because if we get separated, we can't win fights, but if we don't get separated, we will win fights. Now, before we kind of have these guys come up, we are going to slot in this common militias, extra levy combat efficiency, and it's quite a lot, and also peasant levy size, which is going to give us more levies. Hopefully it just increases immediately and we don't need to take a month tick. It looks like we're going to need to take a month tick. That's actually pretty bad. That actually might be a read, but you can see we get up to 60k levies. But here's the issue. The crux of the issue is that we need to get all of these levies landed, and here, we're not going to raise them there because they're just going to die. We need to get all of these landed somehow, and normally we just walk across, but it looks like they're already sieging us and they're already here, so probably a little bit of a mistake to not hand out that levy privilege initially, but we're going to bring all these guys down this way. We're going to have them merge as they come, and we are also going to probably need to get up our levies on all of this, so we're going to raise all of our navy levies as well and look to maybe get market access or get access somewhere up here and land up here, or see if we can get enough transport capacity off of all these ships to be able to do something meaningfully good. Hopefully they don't clip our ship coming off from the left. They might clip this ship on his way over. This may be a little bit reckless here, but we all get all here. So let's take a look and see how much we can transport. 6,500. Hey, this 40k stack will be transported. We're going to put a man in charge. We're going to put a man in charge without a naval kind of trait here. And if you have issues with the first 100 Years' War, it's like kind of a free restart, or you shouldn't feel bad about restarting. I think that we can take this 8k as well, and then this in total will be enough to saturate kind of this landing. Okay, so that's pretty good. We're going to merge these guys, do this, click some buttons. Did that decrease the amount just by merging? Yeah, it did. Okay, perfect. So we're going to merge even more. So we should have a pretty comfortable thing, but the really important thing is that we have to stay blobbed up. Because if we are not blobbed up, we will get wrecked and single-filed by the French. But if the French, if we are blobbed up, we will beat them because our levies are better than theirs, and we know it. So we're going to come on over and hope that they're not there on the landing. They are not, and then we can get in there. And now I do believe that the war goal is show superiority. It's either show superiority or defend the capital. Here we can see, it looks like it's show superiority, so all we have to do is win battles here. And so this is what we're going to be doing, looking for. Yikes. Normandy lands us, though. That's a little bit annoying. We'll set this guy to defend the coast. Oh, not that one. We'll look for hunt navies, and we will kind of set this up so that it's just defending our coastline here rather than some other thing. But we'll look to push these guys out and then maybe return over here if need be, if these guys are kind of wrecking us, because it looks like they're actually maybe even reboarding a ship here anyways, so that should be fine. But remember, we deleted all of our forts, so we can't just let him just run through the countryside over here. Alright, the situation's changed a little bit. Last time we played England, they weren't anywhere near this fast about landing, and to be fair, it could be the 1 month tick that we took it as a wait, but these guys are small armies, so they should be pretty easy pickings for us. I think we're going to stay united and just look to clip them with as few losses to our men as possible, and then what we will do is we will split them if we get them sufficiently kind of broken down. Looks like we do lose a battle just kind of having this guy just sitting around for doing reconquering this, but it looks like they're not going to pick that back up, so we will get that back for ourselves. We will just continually merge the units, and we should be able to win all of these fights very, very, very comfortably. We saturate the fronts very quickly. Their knights are quite strong, but our levies are really strong. We have a bunch of bonuses stacked. We are going to be probably... Ooh, we're not even doing more damage. Oh, we're doing more damage now. So this should be pretty comfortable for us to win these battles. And that one actually looked a little bit uncomfortable. We lost quite a bit of troops, but we're just going to keep merging here. We actually probably benefit more from being on more open terrain rather than rough terrain because we saturate the fronts so quickly with our additional initiative. And so we will be able to, if they can fully saturate the fronts by virtue of there not being a lot of them, this kind of favors them a little bit. And so we will just be kind of cruising around, taking as many battles as possible, because this is where the war score comes from. As long as we lift all these kind of occupations, which should be fairly fairly straightforward. We should be in pretty good shape here, and then we'll come back over here. How are they doing on... oh yeah, looks like they're kind of doing a little bit of a number on Aquitaine. We do want to make sure that these guys stay loyal, so we will increase relations with them. We were looking to maybe ally these guys, and they probably would be amenable to this in the near-ish future if we were not at war. So we'll maybe have them helping us out for the second phase of this war. So, in all the madness, we do pop our first parliament. It's very, very appealing or attractive to do this, but we haven't already progressed naval all the way that we possibly can, or it looks like we actually have, but that's just because we're mobilized. We can get more progression towards naval without this, and we really want to change some laws, and so we're going to do this, and then take a look at our crown power now, and it's at 17%, and one of the big things is this is giving us a tax efficiency malice that's really uncomfortable, and we would like to have more crown power. So, what we'll do is we'll ask for a law change, and we will go for the administrative system, not the administrative system. We will be going for the distribution of power. English Parliament, don't really like this minus 33% that early. Even though we like max tax, I think what we're going to go for is favor the ruler for plus 20% to our crown power. And then we don't really have very many clicks to take here as it relates to this. So I think that we're just going to knock... There's no way we're getting to an additional, 31% support without events with just this going on. And so I think we're just going to take this as it is. And then we will just kind of watch as our crown power, it goes way higher from this minus 33% penalty to this plus 20%. This is going to be really nice for us, and our crown power is up to 24%. So, effectively, that's giving us like a big chunk of tax efficiency. So that's going to be useful. We have our guy patrolling. He's not doing that great a job keeping them from landing, or I guess he's doing an okay enough job, and we are just going after the French army here, and it looks like we will pick them up. We also picked off the Norman army, and so this should be pretty straightforward for us. He's just, yeah, I hate it when they can, like, retreat immediately, this type of thing, but eventually we will stack wipe this guy, and so at that point, we will be in good shape here. We get this Order of the Garter event. England just has an enormous amount of events coming in, and so we will be able to kind of, okay, we're going to have a little bit of a read in terms of what we want to do here. We have several different choices. Looks like they give us nothing that's too crazy except the Alms Knight. We are more than happy to be getting 7 stab, and for this, Peasant satisfaction equilibrium is generally really strong, generally kind of hard to come by, so that is almost certainly going to be what we are going for. That is our favorite satisfaction, just generally speaking, and it's looking like it's, a state satisfaction plus X, so really happy to receive that. Diplo rep's kind of okay. It will decrease the amount of antagonism we get, but I think we do want Peasant satisfaction and Pop promotion speed. Pop promotion speed also very good in the early game, and so that's going to work well for us. Looks like we get maybe a little bit of a longer battle, though. Eventually these guys will get stack wiped, eventually, but at that point we will be getting a really large amount of war score. You can see our war score, we have a ton from battles, and so happy to have the battles over here if that's what they want, but what we are going to want to go for, it looks like, I think we can't go for Flanders, a little bit unfortunate, but what we're going to look for is probably a transferring of Normandy, or Artois, or these types of things, people that we can eventually, who are in lands that we can eventually get a lot of control for. There are, plenty of opportunities in terms of natural harbors over here, and so Normandy, Artois, and to a lesser extent Brittany are all places we want to go for in terms of this peace deal here. But this is just a lot of shuffling back and forth here until they eventually bite the dust. So after a bit of scrambling, we kick them out from mainland England, and now we are off and looking to defend down here. We don't have a way out if we somehow get trapped, which is kind of why it's so important we have this massive stack, but we also have this massive stack. So as long as we don't see like a 40k stack from France just somewhere on the horizon, we should be looking in relatively good shape here. And so we're just going to try and keep an eye on that. We do have a couple forts down here, and we're looking to liberate those forts. We're up to 50% war score, so it's looking like, hey, they are super amenable to a peace deal, plus 100. So, unfortunately for us, we have to occupy these guys in order to seize land directly. So what we're going to look for is we're going to look for liberations that are really, really big, and we're going to look for them for kind of 2 reasons. One, we can grab these and then liberate them as subjects, and they'll have all these cores, but excuse you. excuse you. I guess we can't go for a peace deal. They're only amenable to a white peace. All right, fair enough. So for our age choice, I think we're going to go with administrative focus. We're generally kind of preferring this just overall in almost all scenarios. The kind of thing that maybe we care about the other one is tolerance ideas and also war score cost, but for the most part we're going to prefer that. And now we can slot in our decision that we wanted to go for in Royal Decree. Now, to be fair, we could wait until we get 50 naval and then look to go for a harbor administration. I think that, well, waiting's no good. I think waiting's not worth it, so we're going to go with Royal Decree, which is going to help us to push centralization once we eventually do start pushing it. Something to note, and something we're considering, is we can separate piece out a lot of these guys, and so we could take a lot of dirt in separate pieces before France is willing to, and we just get very little antagonism on anyone except for the person we're going after. But France is still not willing to give up very much. They're willing to give up some stuff now, and so this might be the way that we have to navigate, is just individually look to take a lot of stuff from individual subjects that we know are disloyal, like Brittany, and then go after them. However, we know that Brittany, part of why they're disloyal is because they have a big army relative to France. If we knock out their army, they might not be disloyal anymore. They need to be disloyal in order for us to be able to peel stuff off of them. So there is the rub a little bit, but we will try and occupy them, I guess, without taking out too many of their armies. Something like this, and so I'm not sure how that goes. We also maybe need to go back for reinforcements relatively soon. We are starting to get bled down a bit, and they do have more troops than us by like a big margin, and if they all stack together, we're in trouble. You see here they have 114,000 and we have only 36,000, so we could disband this and then re-raise it and maybe be back up to like 35,000 on this stack instead of 29,000, but we're at the point where we're starting to feel uncomfortable in some of these battles, so we do need to be a little bit careful. Alright, so we take a little bit of a chunk out of Brittany. Incidentally, really nice harbor here in Brest, so that should be good for us. Also just kind of north-facing coast. Thought that this land would be decent. We'll release it as a subject when this war is over. But this is actually quite a bit more difficult than our previous excursions with the 100 Years' War. They have updated it a little bit, but we've got some tools, like request entry. We will spend a little bit of legitimacy and money in order to get someone to side with us, and the targets here are impressive. I do think these are just people who would accept, and we're more than happy to have Castile in on this war, and it looks like they're mobilizing, and they're rumbling, and they're bumbling, and I think one of the reasons why, are we okay with her marrying? I guess we kind of are. One of the reasons why I think that they are wanting to continue the war so much, why they have so much war enthusiasm, is because they have so many troops relative to ours. Not anymore. We have a 42,000 mobilization from Castile. Also, Castile should be able to run through them here. And look at them. They're even merking up. What great friends. The 60 ducats we gave them is not going to be able to pay for that. How many mercs did you get? Brother, you got 6 units of mercs? Holy. So, I think just this alone will probably allow us to take a whole lot more land. Yeah, look at this, look at this. Just that alone, they're like, you know what, we're not, where's that war enthusiasm? Where'd that go? They used to have a huge positive or negative modifier for war enthusiasm, not anymore. So just this alone should be enough, but if we can piece out some of their bigger members, we should be able to take much bigger chunks here. And so, here, let's sort by, not naval strength, but manpower strength. So if we could do something like peace out Flanders, peace out Normandy, peace out Burgundy, these guys who are likely disloyal, then we will be able to get an even better peace deal for ourselves. So we're probably going to look for a really, really fat peace deal just overall. Got to keep an eye on the antagonism. I guess we don't want to generate too much antagonism, but at the very least, we're going to bleed them dry for money and this type of stuff. We don't really have the ability to transfer too many vassals, because a lot of the ones we want to transfer are over 100 in terms of cost, but we could maybe transfer some of the ones in the south. We definitely want to release and grab some Poitou land. So something like this is going to be like the bare minimum what we go for, but now we're in really good shape. Oh no, they're occupying us. Oh no. No. So, for battles, England's great strength is that they saturate the fronts nearly instantly with all this initiative, and then they get to buzzsaw the units as they're trying to single file in. Now, they don't have as many units as us, so they can't fully saturate the front, but this is why we're so effective. We have all these units dealing damage, they have 2 units dealing damage, and only 2 units taking damage, so that front collapses, and then if one front collapses, it's, you know, very, very quickly, it all just kind of ends for them. And so, this is going to be what we're looking for. We are getting pretty close to the point where we want to peace out. We want to be able to take more gold, and now we're kind of into the soft underbelly of France over here, where there's a whole bunch of stuff for us to occupy with 0 forts. We don't want to look to take a bunch of forts, but we won't need to. We'll just need to win some fights and take some of this stuff in order to get a much more lucrative peace deal than what we currently have on the table, which is already absolutely crippling to France. And so, alright, we have this absolutely back-breaking peace deal for them. It's going to give us a pretty decent chunk of infamy, but it's not going to be on basically anyone who's not French, and so we don't really care. For this, we are going to be transferring over 2 of the subjects that he has. We're going to be transferring them as vassals, because vassals don't integrate quite as quickly, and then we're going to be releasing Poitou as a subject as a fiefdom, because they'll integrate that a little bit fast. Oh no, wait, they're historic. We could do them as a vassal as well, but this guy will be releasing as a fiefdom. We're also taking this little bit of land here, because we do want that for a market capital eventually, and by eventually I mean in the near future, because checking this out, what we're going for war reparations, we're going for money, and we're going for taking over the market center from France. So you see this beautiful market, that's about to go away. That's about to become real ugly for France, and their economic activity is centered around here. They have 100% market access, so they get 100% of the economic value of what's going on there. If this were to become 70%, that'd be really nasty for them, because they would lose out on a ton of value. So, and that's about to be what happens for them. We are doing this primarily to cripple them, not because we really want the market center, but where will it go? It will go to Tencarville, which is exactly where we wanted it. Incidentally, this is a good natural harbor, and so this is a good spot for our market capital anyways. It's not interfering with our London market, and we'll eventually be able to push a good amount of control over here. And so, also, the meat and potatoes of where they're, okay, it's not super far, but if we let a month tick, may the people rejoice indeed. If we let a month tick, we can see the new market access as it recalculates. We have decreased the size of their economy in their main kind of area by like 20%, and also over here by even more. And so this is going to be really, really rough for them just overall. And then we're going to be cleaning up kind of how we wanted to have the subjects. But on top of that, they should have debt now, because I do believe we spiraled them into a little bit of debt. We could go to economic actions and we could see what take on debt looks like. But they have 1193 of debt, and so they have a bunch of loans. Loans give you negative crown power, and so they are probably in really, really bad shape here. You can see their line is going down. The line's supposed to go up, and so this is going to be quite a bit of savagery against them. Even though, like, we're not taking what looks like a lot of stuff nominally, I do think the moving of the market is going to be absolutely crippling to them, and I think that we move this other market eventually over to Antwerp, and then we have actually pretty good markets in terms of what we want, what's valuable to us, and then maybe the coal market we move somewhere down here, because here could use a market. This is kind of a bit of a dead zone in terms of market access, only getting 44% market access. Would not be shocked to see France or someone else make a market in here in the near future. But this is going to suit us quite nicely. Also, with this as the market capital, we are going to likely be able to control the trade out of here, so we're going to be able to control France's trade economy. You can see here, look at our trade advantage. We have 32, France only has 3.5. Yikes, especially if we look to build up some stuff here. So this is going to be pretty good for us. Pretty happy with this peace deal, even though we weren't able to do stuff like transfer Normandy and Flanders. Another thing is, as we create a subject, historical subject, we're going to do it in Poitou here, and we're going to make them vassal, I think. These guys are going to be able to formulate claims on France, and so as they make claims on France, we might use that war instead of the 100 Years' War, which will allow us to go for Flanders specifically, which is what we want. We could go for Brabant ourselves, but Flanders is going to be nice to go for because we could take their market. Call an ambulance, but not for us. Call it for France. France needs one. We will also ask Aquitaine to improve their cultural view of us. Gascon's a pretty big culture. It's going to help us to integrate them later. As far as tech goes, we are going to be beelining the Mediterranean galley. This is going to be our best option until we get barks for increasing maritime presence, and this is something we want to be doing, so we're going to go for it. It's not necessarily going to feel the greatest, but we're a little bit off of banking. And then, considering we already went to the left side of the tree, we are going to go for proximity cost impact. I think that's really kind of the main thing that we want on the left side of the tree. Legislative efficiency and construction efficiency are kind of okay, but we have to go through a lot of text to go for them. Legislative efficiency giving us a decreased antagonism for these wars that we are going for some big kind of asks. And so I think then we will come to this side of the tree and go for the city rights, town rights discount. We did start turning Tancarville into a town. That way we can build the market capital buildings. And after a little bit of like reflection, we kind of don't like that this is happening. So would in the future look to maybe move it down a few locations and down into the right, especially because this is along a river. We do want to keep it on the river, because rivers are really good for market access projection, but maybe somewhere around here, or maybe even back to Paris once we have Paris. But for now, we're more than happy for them to struggle with a majority of their locations. And if you look here, and you look at like where France owns land, they don't own land like where Normandy is. They don't own land over here, which is really where we moved a lot of the market access to. And so they're in bad shape there. They will have slightly better market access here, and like these types of locations, but really they don't have a lot of control there. So if you look at the overlap where France has control, all of it's like a minus 20% in terms of the value that they're going to be getting in their higher control areas for them. So we finally get a very near full price collapse on roads. This is what we were waiting for, kind of hoping for, and so now it's a minus 33% on almost everything. Lumber is a little bit sticky. We have some more lumber coming in, but we want to kind of seize this chance now and be building a few roads to specifically urban areas. And so it doesn't matter if they're accessed by the sea in terms of their market access, like this location probably is, or what we want, or in terms of proximity, their access rather, even though this is almost certainly accessed via the sea proximity wise, in terms of the market is going to be accessed very likely. Ooh, looks like it's not accessed. It is accessed by the sea market-wise. All right, fair enough. So maybe that road is going to be a little bit less useful over there. But we are going to be connecting all of these areas kind of with our next big spends for some time here, especially because they have more fine cloth places than they did before. And so this is going to really, really increase our proximity in the short term. And in the long term, we are going to be getting a lot more naval. And so you can even see the proximity start to come up as these roads are completed, and this is going to benefit us not just economically, but also in terms of crown power. We'll have more levies, this type of stuff for our eventual other war with France. Also very notable is we have a decent amount of proximity here because of the naval propagation, and that's even with an absolutely massive expense here going back in, but we can make this even cheaper as time goes on by building a wharf, and this will increase our harbor capacity, right? And so eventually it will be very, very cheap for us to go into Carville, and just relative to like some of the other lands we own, like this entire everything to the left of here in England is more expensive to get proximity to than Carville. So this is like really, I think, kind of the main point or the punctuation mark in regards to England's start is all of this land is going to be so valuable for us if we can take it, which of course we can. So, a little bit not attentive of the time. We only had a couple months, and then we have the and then we have our parliament. Generally speaking, you shouldn't spend a lot of money right before your parliament pops, because sometimes you roll stuff like this, like the discount for gravel roads. Now, we do want to make sure that this gets through, and unfortunately, our nobles are a little bit mad at us, so it will be a little bit difficult to get this through, but we do want the plus 10 centralization. There are some other laws we want to change too, but the plus 10's actually, you know what? Us getting off of this and then getting rid of that one estate privilege is probably more valuable than actually passing this gravel road network, because this will give us plus 10, but we can start the trend towards centralization in a pretty strong way if we do those two things. And so what we're going to do is we're going to wait a few months, that way our nobility recovers in their satisfaction so that this is worth more, and then try and click through and find a way to change off of the feudal administration. Which once we do, we'll be changing it to a policy that gives us plus 0.1 centralization trend. So we'll move from minus 0.13 to plus 0.07. But then alongside that, what we're going to be doing, and we can do this now, even, is we're going to be revoking this bad boy, which is going to be cheaper to revoke than it was at the start because the yeomanry has been diluted out, and we also have a pretty big bank of stab kind of built up here, so it's not going to be too bad on us. We're going to expend a little bit more on stab, though. We started spending a little bit. Let's get it up to like 0.33 in terms of what's going on. We have and are making quite a bit of money. Would like to stay in the positive stab, and we do have coming up the Black Plague in terms of the timeline, and so we just want to make sure we stay positive stab. Super high stab is not as valuable as just making sure you're not in the negative, and so we're going to try and make sure that happens. Also gonna do that. It's supposed to be automated back down, but I guess not. But fine enough, fair enough. All right, so now we get 17% support rather than that 14% support because we waited for this to recover up, but we are out of time, so we're going to contain professional armies. Don't necessarily need that on a kind of near-term basis, and then we could go for reduce opinion here. We don't want to kind of wreck their satisfaction too hard, the nobility, because they're kind of upset with us, and some other people are upset with us, so let's just go with this. And then also, right now, currently, the yeomanry is pretty upset with us, so what we're going to do is we're going to go for our law change. We're going to change off of feudal administration, which is giving us progress towards decentralization, towards central council, which will give us progress towards centralization, and so that will help us out there. And then we are, in order to make these guys a little bit more happy, we're going to look for something we can give them that gives just free subjects and doesn't have anything too bad. I think free mobility for the common people is going to be kind of what we want anyways. Makes the nobles a little bit upset in terms of the equilibrium, but that's going to be fine enough. And so it's going to also add more power to them, which is maybe a little bit less fine, but just trying to manage these to make sure no one goes too rebelly, and so I think we're probably in pretty good shape here. And then also, before the parliament is over, we of course want to utilize the discount we're getting on roads, because we are going to be getting this, in addition to this minus 33%, because we've collapsed the price. The prices, once you start collapsing them, they tend to steady, you pump them up when you spend, but then they come back down to collapse, because it's all about creating a surplus. So once you have the surplus, you've kind of like bought it in. So what we're going to be doing, you notice, you get this minus 20% for the expand gravel road networks, so it is going to be quite a bit cheaper. So we're just going to open up the location rank map mode, and then oscillate between the location rank map mode and this, and just look to make sure that we connect everyone in here. We are, by the way, clicking the back button. We're like left clicking here, and then we're clicking escape, and then we're clicking the back button to get back into the build menu. And this is how we're navigating the UI here. So I think we can just build it to here. We'll just spend down everything we have and really look to improve those roads and improve our overall, proximity for now, as we will be getting the naval pretty shortly here. Let's let this guy rebuild his ships, but we are going to be upgrading to the Mediterranean galleys. And if we take a look at our galley right now, I think we do have some galleys. This is what we're getting our maritime presence with. And this is going to be 0.08 instead of 0.12 from the Mediterranean galley. So the Mediterranean galley is a plus 50% upgrade, and so that's going to be really nice for us. We are also hoping to get a little bit more sailors, but in terms of getting sailors, getting more control to areas is going to be one way in which we get more sailors. And so the roads are going to help us get more sailors too, because for every lack of control, you will have a decrease in sailors, so that will help out. The Black Death has in fact spawned. It's not close to us yet, but we are starting to build some hospitals in high population areas just to protect a little bit more of our pop. This is going to be important. Incidentally, Tancarville does have an enormous amount of population. More population, I think, than anywhere we have in England, with 71,000. We only have 51,000 in London right now, and so that does look to outpopulate all of England, but here's really where our big pop is. Unfortunately, we don't have too many urban areas, but we are going to look to hospital as many of these up as we can, to preserve as much pops as we can. There's maybe a little bit of an argument that we should have taken a lot more high pop places off of France just to protect the pops via hospital, but that seems maybe a little bit of a reach, but it is something that you could maybe consider doing and or actually do. Also, another aspect of the roads is as we build more and more of them, and we get higher market access to places like inland over here, this actually pushes out the other markets. So as we get more roads to the north, it should actually push the Edinburgh market up, unless Edinburgh gets more, roads down south, because it's doing a sort of competition thing between the two markets, and whichever one is winning is going to be pulling it in, both a combination of market access and market attraction, as well as other modifiers like market protection. So multiple things are going on, but as we pushed a bunch of roads over here, we started to overcome the Dublin market, and so we pulled a lot more locations into the market. And recall the Sand province earlier? It's right here. Now it's back into the London market, the same province that was in the Dublin market kind of at the start of the game. And also, we are starting to pull more of these locations back into the London market from the Tancarville market, which we didn't really like them being in there anyway. So maybe we can leave the Tancarville market, because once we get level 2 roads, market access doesn't really ever get much better, or doesn't, it improves very, very marginally in terms of overseas, but as you get new road levels, it improves quite a lot. And so maybe once we get level 2 roads, the entire like mainland here will be London, and that's kind of what we want. And so maybe we don't actually need to move the Tancarville market. I think moving it's still fine, but this is going to be an aspect of the roads. As you build them, you will also get, or tend to get, a bigger market. So the Black Death does in fact spread to us here. It is present, I think, in London. It's got 0.01%. So we should get full use out of all these hospitals. We're also going to segregate the infected, because expel the sick, we don't have any incense, so we can't really make full use of the pest house. And so we're going to do that. And then we will also present scapegoats, but we're going to, or sorry, sponsor mass forgiveness. But this is going to give us increased, just kidding. We're not. What? What? Did we get rid of it? Just kidding. Completely got rid of the plague. Oh, no, wait. Never mind. It's back. Shout out to... We isolated all the people, but we didn't. So, what we will be doing is sponsoring mass forgiveness. Now, I think in theory, you should just do this towards the end, because the main thing is the plus 12 stab. I think it does give you some events that are somewhat useful, but you have to pay this monthly gold. I think that it's not really intended that you're supposed to be able to circumvent it, and you're just supposed to click the buttons at the start. So we're going to click the button right now. We do get the benefit of stab right now. We are in negative stab, which is something that we dislike. Look at this. Around 1/3 of the amount of negative stab you have will be negative state satisfaction equilibrium. So that really hurts your ability to do things. So we're just going to click this button right now. Just know that it's probably not optimal, and you're probably just supposed to wait towards the end of when the Black Plague hits, so that you can pay the absolute minimum in terms of the monthly upkeep costs on that. So I just realized, because it came and then it went away, we actually have to pay the stab for segregate the infected twice, which is a little bit annoying, but we will pay for it. I was taking a look at London and was like, hey, they should have more disease resistance than they do. What's going on there? Well, it's because that went away, so that is going to be a bit unfortunate. That's an extra 10 stab hit, but we're still going to be in positive stab, at least for now, but we will get negative stab events, and here you can see the Black Death is a spreading, but our hospitals are a built-in, or have built-ed, did. So we lose about 40% of our pops, but after the Black Plague ravages our lands, we will have pretty good opportunity to build settlements, which give 1% population growth and also migration attraction, which will help us to repopulate these areas. We'll also pick up and build them in our subjects here as well, and so this is going to be pretty good. Also, really nice that we're getting it right next to the capital too. Well, it's not nice because people are dead, but, you know, it is nice because we are going to get population growth. So we have been fighting for some time to get enough gold inside of our market to be able to build the Royal Garden, which is going to give us monthly diplomats, and that's going to be quite nice. We also get this event, the decline of the Cinque Port, which is going to be a nice little one because we can choose a location with which to build a dock. And docks, in case you didn't know, give a whole bunch of sailors. This is 16 sailors. The wharfs that we have, they're only giving 1 sailor. Really kind of valuable. We have a few locations that we could choose from, but I think we're going to choose Rochester because... Wait, there's already a dock there. Oh, there's a Cinque Port there, and it's becoming a dock? Alright, fair enough. We're choosing this location because it is closer, and the whole point here is that we want to maximize the amount of sailors we're getting. Our ships repairing is going to take quite a bit because we're upgrading up to these Mediterranean galleys, and by having it closer, we are suffering from less of a penalty to maximum control, or to monthly sailors as a result of maximum control, and so we just want it as close as possible as we can get it. So you might have seen us floating a cabinet action. That's because we're waiting to either get a burgher in or waiting for one of our crown characters to come of age so that we could get an additional 12% coming in there and helping them to increase crown power. We have a lot of modifiers. We maybe could go back onto the law or reform that we swapped off of at game start here. But also did want to note that we are increasing development here. And the main idea is that London outgoing, in terms of proximity, let's take a look here. London outgoing has several modifiers, of which the harbor capacity is a big one, reducing this. Bridge is one, but also we're going to have Pound Lock Canal. But part of this is development. For every 5 points in development, we will decrease the cost of the segment by 1%. But since this is affecting our market access, or sorry, not our market access, our proximity virtually in almost all of our country, because it is going to be going from naval out and then in somewhere else, we are going to dev province here. Also, development does have some other uses other than proximity. Proximity was like the biggest one, and then it got nerfed to be 1/5 of what it used to be. However, development also has a bunch of other stuff going on that we would like to have at the capital, such as building max level, supported building levels. The number of maximum buildings you can build also goes up. The proximity, the population capacity is going to be a big one as well. Institution growth, good to have this on market centers. I think we could take a look here and see, like, for example, some building levels. You can see maximum is influenced by development, and these are the areas that are going to have the most control and market access in our entire kind of kingdom. And even though it's 3 locations, the dev here is kind of nice. There are other places to dev up, and that would be hitting more locations, but specifically here we're caring about the proximity of the outgoing naval and trying to reduce that to 0, and so to that end we are going to use dev province here, but it's not anywhere near as valuable as it used to be. Let's peel off a month and see if we get an additional increase in our crown power as a result of you know, putting that cabinet member in, and we do. So we're up to 35%, which is a big chunk, and we're benefiting. Our trade is benefiting from this because we get a percentage income equal to our crown power, so we have 35% trade income, and so we are starting to expand out the markets a little bit as well. In terms of what trades are actually happening here, we see that we are getting a few imports of the furniture. We don't want to build this ourselves, even though it would be lucrative, because this would really pressure our lumber, and so we're actually super okay importing that, but we want to get to the point where we're exporting fine cloth, so both increasing trade and also increasing the production of our fine cloth is going to be useful in that regard. We can even take a look at our market and see if we even have a surplus of fine cloth yet, and we see we do, so this would be a fine enough thing to export. And if we try and export it, looks like, or we don't have any capacity, but if we had some capacity, we could maybe make a little bit of money. I guess maybe not so much money in the export, so for now we won't be doing it, but we're looking to eventually be doing that. Our places that are producing fine cloth do still have decent kind of margins, although they are diminishing more and more as we get the price of fine cloth down, right? And so when we start exporting it, then the price is going to level out because we will be creating demand. But for now, we probably want to try and increase our supply of dyes, just in terms of like a macro sense. So let's see if we can find any dyes. That way our inputs are cheaper, and by making our inputs cheaper, things are going to be a little bit better. And we could get it from the Tancarville market, and there is something that's really nice about this. They do have a little bit of excess dyes. There's something that's really nice about this. Since we have the most trade advantage in the Tancarville market, we get to control all the outgoing goods, and so we have the guaranteed access to the dyes here. Now, dyes are pressured here, so maybe the trade route doesn't stay in, but we assume that they might get built a little bit more by France because there are 4 kind of dyes within this market, and so that would be good for us and allow us to supply the textile industry of London, which otherwise is a little bit shy on the dyes. However, we can take a look, and we do have a loom up here. If we have any urban areas, we do have one in York. Is York within the market? It is not. So what we can do is we can look to build a road to York, hopefully yoink it into the London market, and then from there, because the loom is an important input of the dye industry, maybe start producing dyes ourselves in order to try and make our tailors guilds a little bit more profitable, either with the dyes or the loom plus dyes in terms of the PM, to make it more profitable here. So one way we can pull York back in is getting more market attraction, which we could do with this privilege. So we should see York as we kind of pass the time get peeled back in. So that's going to be good for us, and we're going to be able to produce dyes out of there quite profitably. And so you can see 0.55, that's pretty good considering how far it is from a market center and or source of control. Actually, but we don't want to do that right now because it is pretty expensive. We see that the cost 47, we can wait for that to come back down. That's going to be based on the masonry. We did just put in a whole lot of construction, the reason being our parliament spend, so that is going to be fine for us. Alright, so Bohemia is our ally. We help them blob out a little bit. They are expanding, but we don't really help them out that much. Now we can ask them for money because we got so many favors from helping them out, so that's going to be nice for us. Once we finish our tech, we will probably embrace pro-army, but look at that. Yikes. I think that we can probably look to push before we embrace that, maybe push innovative a little bit more to make it cheaper to embrace. Something like this. Our centralization is pushing, that is nice, but it is time to fight France again. Now that Boho is free from their war, we are going to be using one of our CBs that, hey, we are getting from Poitou. So this is going to give us minus 25% a conquer and subjugate cost relative to conquer the throne of France, which is not a very good CB. So we're going to go for this. It says that we're weaker, and to be honest, it says that we're navally weaker, which is probably the more scary thing. If we take a look, man, they have a lot of cannons, actually. Don't like that. I think we could still probably fight them, but do have to be a little bit careful. We do have the Mediterranean galley. We have like 7 of them, and so I do think we will be able to land in and do this type of thing, but we are going to have a little bit of a go. We're going to mobilize everyone, and we are going to have quite a few levies relative to that. Also, we are going to call in Bohemia, and this is kind of the main point, is that we wanted to call in Bohemia. If I recall correctly, is this influence actions? Yes, we're going to use favors to call them into war. We need to have a diplomat, so it'll actually take us a hot minute, but then we will get in. All neighboring countries get army tradition. Interesting. I think that we are going to gain the more army tradition and prestige and go with that option. But once these levies are up, we need to raise the naval levies too, because we need to be able to project, we need to raise all the naval levies, because in order to cross over, we are going to need more than just that. So we will do that. We will bring them on over here, and we will have a little bit of a go. We will disband these levies, because they will almost certainly just get clipped on the other side of things. We also built a fort down here, which should serve as a nice little anchor point, because they will try and siege it, and we will be able to defend it, and so that'll help us out as well. So let's get all these navy guys on over to this area, and we do have in the capital, this is our navy. Now, here's the problem. They haven't finished healing up because we don't have enough of the sailors, and so it is possible that we just get super clipped, but I think only if they stack. No one has a lot of coastline. Flanders has some, Normandy has some, Brittany has some. France doesn't have any, so I think that we will be relatively safe, but if we're not, that's going to be big sad. Let's take a merge on these guys. They are probably going to need to come over in 2 batches, but we will get started on that, and so with them in the sea zone, we're going to cut these guys in half, and then we will bring them over, and then we will bring the next batch over right after. And this is what we were kind of referring to with the first version of the war. We have to keep everyone in, we have to get everyone over, and then things will be looking in pretty good shape for us. Let's check and see if we can request a war entry. Looks like we can't. We maybe have to be the defender in that in order to do that. I haven't used that interaction very often, but if we can pull Castile in again, that will be fantastic for us. Now that we're all merged up though, and we're all big like, we should be able to win a lot of these battles and kind of play this war the same way we did before, but in terms of war score cost, we will be able to go for way more things. You can see that this is not costing us a lot of war score, and so by virtue of us having a much better CB, we will probably be able to do stuff like, yeah, we will be able to dominion, vassalize, and fief all of their subjects, and so we'll probably be going after Normandy. And then since this isn't the silly CB that doesn't allow you to go after Flanders, we will be able to go after Flanders as well. So probably looking to go after Flanders, Artois, and or maybe Normandy. Leave Brittany on the table for now or for the next war, and then just come after them a little bit later. So this is one of the main points. We are going to be able to catch armies that try and siege us and just clip them as long as they are not absolutely massive. I don't think that this location has... Oh, that's not the right one. I don't think... Yeah, we don't have any dice bonus here, so it's not going to be super strategically nice. But it does have a ton of width, so this means that... if we are facing a smaller force, we will be able to get so many guys on the front so quickly and just get such a big damage discrepancy. We're 10xing them in terms of what's going on, and so that will be pretty effective for us. Can we march all the way over here? It doesn't look like it, so we might need to maneuver using our navy a little bit, and that is a bit unfortunate because... Oh, wait, it's not unfortunate because we actually can carry these guys. Can we? So 4,100 weight, 4,300. We should be able to. Oh, we're controlling the navy right here. So we should just be able to come back on over. Just kidding, we can't come back over. But we can come and pick them up and take them wherever they need to go. And I think we're going to head down here and look to fight some of the armies down here as well here. There's plenty of... I think that they're not going to like crossing over here with so many armies like on the mainland, so we don't have to worry too much about defending our coastline, and so we'll just get onto here and we will head on down as well. We could have, we maybe should have waited. We could have waited and then got a bunch of additional conscripts, and this is maybe going to be the way we yeah, we almost certainly should have waited for our parliament so that we could have done more levies, but here we have a couple of good options anyways. Increased naval infrastructure is probably what we go for to get that additional naval trend. We really want to get to plus 50. But balance the budget. This is one of the reasons why we intentionally are floating a little bit of inflation, so we can roll this. Because if you click balance the budget, you will get a ton of negative monthly inflation, and what this represents is an enormous amount of income if you just max out your inflation slider, and then if you pass it, you will get rid of basically all your interest if you're just floating a small amount with the minus 2.5 inflation. But we will go for this because we really, really care about pushing naval, and so that will be good for us. I'm not sure exactly what we push through here. We can't change our law for the estates on distribution of power. We can't change it onto what we want until we get rid of, until we look to get rid of this. We are blocked by royal decree from having an English parliament, and we want to keep royal decree in for the centralization as long as we're still benefiting from it in terms of pushing centralization. So I think what we're probably going to end up doing is we don't want to contain banking, really. What's the policy they want to change? Unlimited export on precious metal. I don't think we really want that. Let's go with this and then see if we can get a nice little bink and then actually just pass the increased naval infrastructure for the progress towards naval here is really what we care about. And then that's probably going to be our parliament. Not the strongest parliament, but it'll suit our needs. Alright, so occasionally the AI is like, hey, we just have unlimited war exhaustion, this is too bad, we have to give up. And they don't usually stay like this, so we get this basically at the opening salvo of the war, and we can either fight the war and get kind of the things we want, which is transfer subjugation on Flanders, you know, same for Artois, this type of thing, or peace out now for a 100% war score with very little investment in terms of the war. I mean, we put in favors on Bohemia, we lost maybe 4,000 troops total. We're sitting at, back here, we were planning on lowering the army and then re-raising it, and I think we had like 35,000 troops at the start, so we've lost 4,000 pop, but this is just like super free-ish, and everyone who's joining the coalition here, we are going to have a truce with the exception of the Bank of Bardi, our true nemesis, the country that can never be eliminated, the untouchable, the unstoppable Bank of Bardi, which we will look to improve relations with as a way of saying sorry, but we're going to go for this whole thing. We're going to go for this shebang. It's all going to be vassal feeding and releasing new vassals, this type of thing. But in particular, I wanted to draw attention to this. Right now, when the AI has this minus 100, they don't care about getting border gored. Like at all. In fact, let's actually maybe change this and make this a little bit better. Normally, they really care about... Ooh, they do care. They do care enough. They care enough about getting border gored. But you can see here, it went from 100 to this, and they care about being too fractured in terms of what's going on. So I think that we will do a little bit less. Actually, we can like fracture them a little bit. See, here, they don't like it. They don't like it. Alright, so we'll go with this. But they do seem to care a little bit less than they did before. And the idea is we're releasing subjects here. These guys are going to be releasable. These guys are going to be releasable. These is feeding our vassal. This is feeding our vassal. This is feeding our vassal. And then we'll release a new subject here. And specifically also going after forts in a couple places. We'll get this fort. We will get this fort as well. And so this will make future wars a little bit easier. And so this is going to be really nice for us. Look at this. Look at this. We need to use the scroll bar and everything. But that's going to be a big fat peace deal. And so that is going to be a big chunk out of their capabilities kind of moving forward at basically zero investment to ourselves. Alright, we are also going to start urbanizing a little bit for the first time, mainly focusing on places that have a decent amount of pop and are close-ish to the capital. We're going to make sure that we don't urbanize over anything that has specifically a settlement, which none of these do, but we are going to... These places effectively up here are close to the capital. If we look at the proximity, they're really not that far, even though they're visually looking kind of far, but there's nothing like kind of in our immediate ring that has a lot of population here, and so little bit less on the opportunities, and so we need to reach out a little bit to places like this, which are going to have like 22,000. This place also we don't want to urbanize, because we don't, anytime you urbanize or you upgrade to a town, you are going to kill the settlement, and we do not want to kill any settlements. And so, but we are starting to urbanize. We are starting to exhaust our ability to expand out on the industries we are trying to expand out on, and so we need more urban areas to be able to continue to eco up here in regards to the buildings. Big sad, our king dies. He was pretty good. We are going to immediately put his son, our son and heir, or actually not the heir. The king is dead, long live the king, in charge of the navy. We do want him to roll a naval trait so that when we mobilize, because you can see here we're only now 0.02 progress. When we mobilize an army, or if we were to build a larger army, we would start getting land progress. We don't want that. In fact, we could actually demonstrate this now because this doesn't auto slide down anymore. But we can see that, hey, now we have more naval progression than we did before. And so when we mobilize all the conscripts, we are going to actually start trending towards land, making it harder for us to get a naval push. Once we get 50, we will be able to slot in a privilege that will give us 0.1 trend, and then we will be safe. But also, we will be safe if this guy rolls an admiral trait, because that will end up, if your ruler has an admiral trait, this will give you 0.1 trend. Let's see what we got in terms of his things. We got progress towards centralization on the secretive. That is pretty nice. And trade efficiency is also okay. There's one where it's like 5% proximity, so that's quite strong. Some of those are very, very good. And we did forget to swap this guy back from the Diplo rep. Let's change that to societal values and see what we're cooking with. We are getting 0.36 progress towards centralization. Let's see if we have any estate privileges that we haven't given out yet. We have this one, we have this, and so we don't really have additional things that we can get trend from unless we are kind of mistaken here. We can look through and see what is kind of getting in our way. It's going to be fortification licenses, market fairs, things we don't really want to slot out. Manorial courts, yeah. It's really the manorial courts here. This is one that a lot of countries don't start with. We start with it. And so we're probably just going to not be able to get that big a trend here, or a big enough trend to get really, really deep. We'll get 0.36, and then we'll probably swap off to something else, like innovative, which will make a lot of these embracing of institutions a whole lot easier for us. Yeah, we can't afford the gold here, but the 42 stab, that's just so much stab to be paying, so I don't think we want to pay that quite yet. So for tech, we want to prolong before we accept professional armies just a little bit more, because it is spreading. This price is decreasing. It was like 41 before, now it's 33. So we're going to go max literacy for burghers into stability investment, and then we will be going for professional armies. I think these are kind of the things that we want, is the stab investment and also the max literacy for burghers specifically, which will help our dev increase. We could go for some other things that are reasonably good, like the military stuff, like the army morale and the initiative, as well as the naval military stuff, and at the very bottom of the tree, empiricism is pretty good, but getting on professional armies I think will be worth it. Speaking of institutions, we are spreading in London now, making a few trades, and probably should have been a little bit more proactive about this, but specifically importing furniture from Geneva is going to be really, really nice for us because, one, we don't want to produce furniture ourselves because this will create demand for lumber, so even if it's really profitable, we don't want to make it, and two, Geneva has access to the banking institution, so this is going to spread banking to us, which will allow us to really kind of start pushing the maritime presence much better than we are right now. We are getting a couple more sailors. We're kind of doing okay. We can add a little bit, and currently we are pushing up this maritime presence, so we are decreasing the cost, but it is going to be a little bit slow. It's and there's not too much we can do about it because we don't have any light ships. Galleys are okay at pushing, but light ships are much better, like on a per cost basis. Still, we'll add a little bit more to the fleet and look to continue to push this up a little bit. Specifically, or especially once we get like Flanders integrated or this type of thing, it will be really, really valuable to be able to push just over these two sea zones into here, into Bruges, but we don't have access to Flanders. We're also annexing Aquitaine here, but we want to annex them a little bit slow because we want to get banking before we finish annexing them. So what we want to do is we want to annex multiple people at once, so we are also annexing Lancaster, and we will probably continue to do this. I'm not sure how many of these guys are our direct subjects and how many are subjects of Wales, but we can also start annexing Wales, something like this, in order to get the slowdown. But we want the progress, but we also want the slowdown. Here you can see there's a big modifier for them being much stronger, and also for the cultural tradition and the tooltip that won't lock. But here we will be not having this much smaller modifier here, you see, and we are getting multiple annexations, so we're getting progress because we want to eventually annex them just a little bit after the institutions go in. We kind of want to gain access to the Bordeaux market. That way market access for our subjects will be a little bit better, and we can control the trade here, because right now they are choosing to be in the Tancarville market with really, really bad access because they're our subject, rather than going someplace where they're going to have much, much better access, and that's these subjects here in Poitou and this guy, and so we prefer that they don't do that, and we want this land anyways, and we are going to be able to project pretty good control over here at some point in time because they have good enough harbors. 80% is going to be, it's going to be reasonably easy for us to get here, because if we have to spend 4 per sea zone, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, we will lose maybe 50% proximity getting over here, but still have 50% proximity over here. And so this is, or at least in Bordeaux specifically, the other places will have less, but this means like this is relatively close to like our capital, whereas like someplace like this, look at this, we have like 50% like right here, right, just as a point of comparison. And so this is going to look much, much better once we get the proximity going, and basically taking the entire coast of France is something that is going to be what we are looking for. I think we do that before we personal union France, because if you personal union France too early, they actually become the leader of the union because they are a bit bigger than you. So we maybe stepped into the War of the Roses a little bit by annexing Lancaster, because we get the House of Lancaster, we already have the House of York. The House of Lancaster is a split from the Plantagenet dynasty by establishing marriage between both branches through Sir John Plantagenet and Lady Maud of Lancaster. We can ensure a more tight relationship. This can only be good. Can it, though? It sounds like, maybe we might have some issues coming down the road. But okay, we will all automatically gain them all as cores. Spectacular for us. We do want to core this eventually, but I do think we'd start with not enough accepted culture, and I think they really hate our guts. So actually accepting it's fine enough. We could go for the acceptance on Cornish. We could also just go for eventually culture converting them. Why don't we see just how many there are in terms of demography? This is maybe something we should have checked a little bit earlier. Yeah, but there's just not that many. I think we're just going to look to culture convert these guys at some point in time, rather than actively try and accept them. Or they're already tolerated. I think we just won't try and accept them. We can tolerate these guys, though, and I think we are going to go after Norman relatively early. We could see that, hey, the acceptance for Norman is actually not too bad, and same with Picard. We can tolerate them, so I think we're actually going to accept the Norman culture here with our available culture capacity. We don't have enough of them, or a higher enough percentage of them. We still have a little bit of extra capacity. I think that we could go for Welsh. doesn't like us very much, though. So it's going to be extra expensive here. So why don't we just accept Picard or tolerate Picard, and then have this kind of as our setup with accepted cultures. Was hoping to maybe core these, but I think it's just not in the cards. They also have these unique buildings that kind of trash their control anyways in the Stannery Court, giving minus 25 max control, and so it's maybe not even doable to get rid of these at this juncture anyways. I do think there's an event chain for getting rid of them, but we're not all on it or close to getting it removed, I don't think. Alright, so we're going to take out a very short-term loan, and the idea here is we are going to embrace professional armies because we have this as a option to contain it for our burghers, and so if we embrace it, that option will go away. So we are effectively re-rolling this, and we are looking... Oh, does he have to get a full month pass? Oh, no. Not like this. Well, okay, our idea was we were hoping to find naval. We have just a little bit of time left, but we can contain anyways because it doesn't do anything now. And we are looking for any type of naval progress, this type of thing underneath this. Plutocratic movement is kind of okay. We do want to get some amount of trend towards plutocracy in order to lock that in. So why don't we click this, and then we are going to be looking for an estate privilege. Now these guys are big pissed, but we're going to see if we have any estate privileges that push plutocracy. We do in building rights. We probably should have had building rights given out a little while earlier, and then we're going to see if we have anything the nobles like. Our nobles actually don't have that many privileges. We wouldn't mind giving them another privilege. Generally speaking, do like nobility controlled serfdom anyways. And so let's slot this in order to handle that. But was hoping to show off the fact that these can switch if you effectively brick them, but we couldn't get the one that we wanted. So, or we couldn't get it to brick for the what is it contained. So we would get one more roll or one more peak at an ability to get a push towards naval, which is really what we want. And you can see here, yikes, we are trending towards land. That's because we have an army maintenance. So let's get rid of that. Even though we're at war, this is our subject pulling us into a war. But this is kind of exactly what we're talking about. We don't want to have this. This is annoying. This will impede our ability to get there, because over the course of several months, this will add up to a quite substantive amount, and we have to get it above 50 in order to kind of lock it in, and we want, like, long-term to get it above 100, of course. Alright, so we've hit an important breakpoint where we are starting to get enough maritime that the reductions in the amount of proximity we're getting are becoming quite substantive. Now, when you improve maritime, you can see that we're getting plus 0.45. It improves it in the entire province. If you look at the province map mode, you can see that this is one of the sea provinces, and if we come back to the maritime, you can see that it is improving it in all of the provinces here. And so that means this entire stretch, in terms of our proximity, is actually starting to get really improved by quite a lot. And for a lot of these, we are going to have a little bit of a change in terms of how we're doing things. So we are actually projecting proximity to this province of Ely through Lynn, rather than coming from London. And so what we want to do actually is we want to start building roads coming in from the coast as we get to some of these locations, because this place, even though it has a road from London coming all the way there, that's not how the proximity is getting there. And so we want to kind of come in and look at what's going on in these places and build roads for them. Now, also, roads do give development. If you have a road, you will get additional development percentage. So long term, we do want roads just everywhere, no matter what. Anyways, just for the development increase, because 25% is a lot. 25% is also an extra lot if you consider that some places have negative penalties. And so if you're at, 80% of what a normal development would be, and you get plus 25% on top of that, that doesn't represent like a 25% increase, it represents like a 30% increase. And if you're like let's find a place with really bad terrain, let's say you're a mountain, or let's say you're a mountain, you are a mountain today. No, if you have a mountain province, and look at this, minus 75%, you get plus 10% from the coastal, but let's pretend it's not coastal. What plus 25% would represent, what a road would represent for this location, were it not coastal, would be a 100% increase in the amount of development you're getting. So that is going to be substantive. So what we are going to be doing, kind of coming back to this theme here, we are going to be coming and taking a look, hey, where are places generating their proximity from, and we are going to be trying to build roads from the places that they are getting proximity from in order to make things a little bit better. And in doing this, locations like this where we have no road anyways, we'll be getting a better shake of things. So we're going to be doing some of that, and also just to kind of show exactly how effective this is, let's take a look at Tancarville and the way things are going. So coming from this C-zone, coming from the Thames, we will be using the maritime presence here, which is 77, right, in terms of the calculation. And what we are paying on this segment in order to travel is 9.82 proximity, right? But if we take a look at this segment down here, where this maritime presence, we only have 26, this segment is 21 in cost. So you can see where this is going, where eventually the segments will cost 5 rather than like 20 or 30, and so Tancarville will go from, you know, a proximity of like 20 or something like this, 25, to getting a proximity of like 60, 70, 80, 90, up in kind of a much higher territory as we are able to get more and more of this maritime presence. And so what we will see is, as England develops, more and more of it will be, you'll be tracing the proximity through the sea rather than the land, and it'll only be this small pocket around London that actually only traces its way through land, making like the naval really, really valuable. And so this is why we're dev provincing as well, to just look at the proximity, click over here, and see this segment, we can reduce this segment to 0.01 if we get enough proximity cost reduction, if we get 100%, including the harbor capacity, which is really kind of carrying the big weight here. And so this is what we want to do, because that will represent 2 more control basically for our entire empire, which is really, really powerful. But this is how things are changing in terms of the roads. We still want roads also from London, just to be clear, and we want roads from London for the purposes of establishing as much market access as possible. So France, truce break, decks us, which has got to be really good for us. They don't have that much antagonism on us by virtue of doing this, but this is entirely from the truce break, right? Because they haven't won a war, so they haven't generated antagonism by taking something. And so I guess that'll be okay with us, especially because they are using a CB for... Oh, here, let's see if we can come in here. Their CB is claimed province, so they're getting minus 25% cost. And whatever CB they use, we get that same benefit, like, reversed on them. So we, at least I'm pretty sure the way that this is the way it works. So we should be getting a decreased cost on them. So hopefully we are going to go for Flanders again. But I don't think we really need to cover this war that closely, so we're not going to look too close, because we're just going to be doing much of the same thing. You know, bring all the troops over, rattle a few cages, maybe assault some forts, this type of thing, and in order to get through. Now, for the forts, the Hofnice is going to be real nice once we eventually get there, because this will allow us to siege much faster. So I'm not sure exactly what this is going to look like, but I think it's going to be a slow war. We're going to try not to assault too much if we don't need to, because you'd lose kind of like 5k, 6k soldiers when you do that, and prefer to siege them down slowly. But honestly, if the war drags on and you have to fight a bunch of more battles, you maybe kill more troops anyways, so maybe it's more prudent to assault forts, something like this. And so, since it's a defensive war, Bohemia, of course, honors the call and will be helping us out. We're waiting to ask them for money. Considering this is maxed out, though, why don't we improve cultural relations with them as well? I think we can't really improve that much more in terms of cultural relations, but we are going to be grouping up the troops and heading them on over to the other side and looking to... These wars are just going to get easier and easier as well, so we'll be back with the end of it. So based on the war score costs here, we are actually not getting the claim province discount. A little bit unfortunate they truce broke, but we're not going to truce break them just to use a better CB, unless I'm mistaken in kind of evaluating. The UI is a little bit opaque in this regard, but we assaulted this down because before they have an opportunity to fully man the walls, because they go from 50% maintenance to full maintenance, it is a little bit cheaper to assault effectively. So maybe we go and take a little bit of a look at going after Bruges, but we just want to check and make sure that we can actually transfer Bruges in terms of, or not Bruges, but Flanders rather, in terms of the cost here. And so we will search for Flanders, because the search bar does exist, and see that, hey, that's way too expensive, we're never getting that. So maybe we actually just try and piece them out really quick, that way we can use a better CB. something like this, because we have a lot of antagonism anyway. Alright, so we have a crippling peace deal for him. A bit cheaper on the antagonism is the transferring of subjects. We're not getting anyone in here other than the Bank of Bardi. Shout out to the Bank of Bardi, we're not going to have a truce with. We will probably improve relations with the Bank of Bardi, something like this. But what we're doing is we're transferring a bunch of vassals here, and with this we are sort of making a pocket beyond which he won't be able to project control that well. See, the way that it works is that he can project proximity through his subjects. But if they are not his subjects, he will not be able to do that. And so us making a cup here is going to deny him any proximity basically to anywhere south, and he's only going to have this northern area upon which he can project control. And so he's going to have less proximity, so he's going to have less control, he's going to have less levies, he's going to have less crown power, less manpower. Everything's going to be significantly diminished for what is now like maybe this is 30-40% of his useful territory for us forming this cup, and then we will have an easier time like also closing it up in other spots. Like if we take this, we won't completely cut him off, but if we take something like this, he'll say, no way dog, this would leave me too fractured. And so just leaving him one little maze-like way out to try and push progress towards another way is going to be the way that we cut him off from as much proximity as possible. Also, he did annex Normandy during our time here, so that is a little bit annoying, but we will just release Normandy ourselves in that case. And so we will have a bunch of subjects now, and we will release Normandy. A little bit annoying because we did integrate this, and so we are going to be losing that. So it is currently integrated, but it's overall not a big deal. We will create subject, historical subject, and we will do Normandy here. And we'll make him a fiefdom, we'll make him a vassal. And so that will work just fine for us. We are using subjects to get stuff incorporated. Just to be clear, that's why we keep releasing everything as subjects. Because when we annex them, we will have all their stuff. And Normandy is going to have a bunch of claims on all of this land. And so he will create casus bellis that we will hopefully be able to use. But now, let's take a look at Paul Allen's proximity. Oh, he has no proximity here. If we create this, or if we click on any of this, we don't get any proximity type of calculation. So that's the extent to which he's getting proximity. We just have to wait for the month's end in order for it to update, but no more proximity down here in the south portion. So unfortunately for us, Edward got a general trait, which is really obnoxious because that gives us a 0.1 trend towards land. And we didn't notice immediately. We were at like 36 naval, I think, and maybe this is part of why we were having issues earlier and we just didn't notice, but now we're down to 31, and so what we've done is we've deleted our army, so that way we won't have any kind of trend by virtue of having a standing army. We have navy maintenance, we have navy size, and this is contributing, and this is helping to undo what we're getting from you know, just having a ruler with a general trait. There's not a very good way for us to push through this. We could just use a cabinet action to maintain. That way we can build a navy, but I think we'll just rely entirely on regulars for now. Really wish he would have rolled a admiral trait, you know, serving in the navy, but he didn't. So that is going to be a little bit of a speed bump in terms of our ability to push this. As long as we have a positive trend in this direction, though, we can keep getting events and keep getting stuff. And the main idea here is that we've mentioned how we're going to be like kind of free and clear after a certain point. We're free and clear after we get harbor administration, which gives us 0.1 trend, and then we can kind of get away with a lot more because this will give us a lot more leeway, but this requires 50 progress towards naval. You also might have noticed we did promote our daughter to cabinet, or we gave her the ability to serve in the cabinet because her stats are absolutely incredible. And so what she will be doing is she will be helping us to maintain high crown power. We're getting 12.5% each for each of our crown characters. Got a little bit of a love triangle with Castile because France is allied to them and we are allied to them. So whoever does the first attack is going to break the alliance with Castile, because I think that they prioritize defender, but what we're doing is we're trying to curry favors here. We actually allied them largely because France allied them, so that we could eventually down the road use isolate from allies in order to break the alliance between the two and allow us to attack France without any sort of inhibitions. But as it stands now, we might not be attacking them kind of for the rest of the game. Or not the game, but for the rest of the episode. We also have Geoffrey Chaucer, who we invited to our nation a little bit earlier. as it stands, art's just generally not very useful, so if we have a big investment, we're usually not going to be going for it, but we will have the Canterbury Tales. This doesn't have a huge gold investment, and so that will come along. Also, coming along is our naval proximity. We do have, to look at this, a decent chunk of maritime, specifically up to here. We have 100 coming out from here, so I think what we're going to do is we're going to shift on over here and look to push the maritime this way. It is a different province, and it is based on a provincial level, and also this province is huge. Is this all really one province? That is a massive sea zone. Number of locations, 10. So while we're sitting here, we will improve all of these sea zones maritime. That's kind of crazy. That's a huge province in terms of naval province. But okay, we will start increasing it, and if we look in here, we will see Kingdom of England coming up 0.95. It'll be coming up here 0.96. Is it just two similar looking provinces? I guess maybe it's just these three. That's a little bit more manageable. And also in here, okay, so this is going to be one province, I think. And then this over here is going to maybe be one or two provinces. But we will be ticking on up. We're doing this manually for now, but after a certain point, we will just use the patrol the seas kind of function, which is probably a little bit better than being manual, but we want to push controls to specifically up here a little bit early, because this is where we have all of our urbanization, and so we wanted to prioritize this area and not go down south, and so that's why we're kind of focusing this until it gets to 100 first. So this is going to be a fairly big parliament for us in terms of what we got going on. We're going to go sponsor the Noble Arts. We just want, generally speaking, kind of a big chunk of support because we're going to be looking to change some laws. Before we can do that, we need to slot this out in order to go back onto the parliament. This is giving us monthly progress towards centralization, so we will lose out on that where we were previously getting it. And we have a few options in terms of what we want to go. We could go this. Tax efficiency is really strong. I don't think we have enough decentralization trend to fully do everything we want to do with it and still maintain positive centralization trend, so we're going to let that go for now, and we kind of have a choice between plutocratic ethos and trade office network and diplo traditions in terms of stuff that's good for us or reasonably good, and I'm thinking that we are kind of leaning towards plutocratic ethos because this legislative efficiency, that decreases the amount of antagonism we generate, and it also gives us a progress towards plutocracy. The parliament-based support is pretty nice. We would also decrease antagonism with diplo traditions as well as get more of a trend towards conciliatory. We're not really that pressured on diplo cap at this juncture. The diplo rep would help us with the antagonism as we mentioned, but I think we're going to go plutocratic ethos because maybe we can get a positive trend towards plutocracy sometime in the near future. I do think us going plutocratic makes a lot more sense because the main attraction of going or staying monarchy, and we want to go plutocratic so that we can eventually form into a republic. This is way down the road. But the main advantage of staying monarchy, or the really big payout, or the strong tech that you get, is in terms of, I think it's in your legal code. No, it's not in your legal code. It is going to be in your royal court. You get itinerant court, minus 10% proximity cost through land. We're not doing as much through land as a lot of other nations, and the Republican one, there is going to be a law category that gives you minus 5% proximity cost just flat, which includes naval, which for us is really, really valuable because when we have these harbors that we're kind of coming into, let's kind of take a little bit of a look here. When we have these harbors that we're coming into, we're reducing it with a whole bunch of stats, right? An additional 5% here would be so valuable, right? Because this is, 82.5%, and so 5% would reduce the amount we're paying here by like a third, and it would increase control in this area by like 2, but it's like 2 for everywhere, right? And so this is going to be really substantive, because if we start clicking, we're starting to see the edges kind of come in terms of where we are projecting proximity, and it's less and less just coming out from the capital. So this land projection is not quite as good to kind of talk a little bit about why we want to eventually get off of the legal code here. Sorry, I meant royal court customs, eventually getting off of, or just having a royal court in lieu of having just generic proximity. So we are going to go plutocratic ethos because this will allow us to do this. And now that we've come off of that, we can switch our distribution of power off of favor the ruler. We were really kind of valuing the crown power early. Now we have a lot of crown power set in. Maximum tax for everyone, 5%. This is good, but it's estate satisfaction equilibrium -5, not so good. But what we can do is we can do what we wanted to do in terms of our parliament, ask for a law change, and go after the distribution of power, and instead we can go for English parliament. You see here, -33%, this is pretty nasty, but what we are getting in return for it is huge agenda impact, so it's going to be easier for us to have good parliaments. Monthly legitimacy, this is a pretty big come up, considering one of our major expenses is going to be cost of court, just generally speaking, and this is going to be cheaper overall if we have a lot of flat legitimacy gain, because what's going to happen is we have -1, and this is our legitimacy decay. For every legitimacy gain we have, we can pay less in terms of our investment. So here we're capped out, and we are paying for 0.8 trend, right? We would have to pay for 0.05 less by being on this, which would decrease this. Not super huge, but it is meaningful, especially if you get a lot of it. And we're also going to get really expensive cost of court later as we become a great power. Currently, we're not a great power, or we're barely a great power, and this scales up as you become a greater and greater power in terms of your expected cost of court. We see, yeah, we're not getting a malice from great power right now. So, coming back, we are going to do law change, and we are going to get onto English Parliament. And this is going to, we're going to lose out on some crown power. We're currently at 33%, and we are going to get English Parliament. It's going to kick up and be much larger. We're going to lose out on the 20% we had. But the important thing is staying above 25%, and we are going to comfortably be above 25%. Even if we take another tick, we should fall down a little bit, but we're in good enough shape. And so this is going to be really good for us, and is the main thrust of us kind of coming back and undoing the initial law that we got off of because we had like no crown power. Now we're putting it back in, and this is going to be very strong for us. The extra max tax everywhere we can also make use of. So I didn't see what our income was before, but it should, well, it's not, the law's not fully in, so it won't pop up, but we're expecting to be comfortably making more than 100 ducats after these slide up a few more percentage, because the max tax hasn't taken effect just quite yet. We can see here, if we look at the max tax on the burgers, currently we're only getting 1% from English Parliament. Eventually this will come up to 10%, and so this means that we are going to have 33% more income from our burgers and a similar percentage from our yeomen. So it's going to be actually more than 100 ducats we're going to have coming on up, so that's going to be good. Banking has also arrived in London, and so now it's going to be much more of a priority. To be fair, it's still a strong thing, but much more of a priority to get down libraries in all of our locations so that we can get a little bit more spread here. Alright, so our truce with France is up, but we want to deck them before they deck us, but we don't want to... The favors thing is an issue, because otherwise we'll have to fight Castile and France, and I'm not entirely sure we can do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to send Castile some money. It's not going to be a ton of money, it's going to be some funny money. Actually, can we take on their debt? I'm not sure if taking on their debt gives us favors, but I know this gives us favors. And this could be a really easy way to just pile up a massive amount of favors. But we're going to do that. We're going to send them some funny money. We are also dramatically increased our diplo spending so that we could do this in kind of a short time period, because we need an additional diplomat to declare war. So we are going to need basically all the diplomats we can get. And then what we are going to do is we are going to use the action isolate from allies. We're going to say break your alliance with France, and then we will be able to, as the month ends and we get another diplomat here, everyone wants to marry the daughter we have in cabinet, we're not going to say yes to any of that. And then now we can declare war on France, and we can have them completely isolated here, which is nice for us. We aren't going to be able to pull Bohemia or Castile in for whatever reason. Maybe it's because we're currently have an ongoing war and it would pull them into 2 wars. That is probably the reason. But we will go for this, and we will go for a little bit of a war ourselves. And the idea here is that we will be getting a discount on subjugation and releasing because we are using Poitou's CB, which they generated via using a... what is it? They used a spy network, and then they used create casus belli, and they did this because they have claims. And so this is why we are able to get the cheap CB on France here. So, because we're close to the start of the war, there are not many people defending this fort. You can see over here, and so assaulting them will be a little bit easier. We won't pay quite so many casualties. We do want to go, specifically Flanders, more valuable than any other subject transfer. We want to go for them, and we're probably going to hang out in this area. That way the fort will have a little bit of time to accrue up new members and recruit up a little bit for a few months. That way we don't just get assaulted back. But fortunately, there's a couple tangos we can go to, and we can go after these guys here. We do have the overall cheaper resolution to these wars, so it is correctly applying, or the CB is applying to us doing stuff like subjugating Brittany, but in this case we're going to be going for Flanders more than anything else. We want that tasty Bruges, and we want to eventually move Bruges over here, but we do want that market for ourselves, which will kind of sort out these guys a little bit. These guys are in the London market, which ideally they wouldn't, because we don't control the Tancarville market anymore because we released Normandy, and then we're probably also going to feed Normandy some territory because we want to really grab this top portion of France, the northern portion, and so vassal feeding here specifically is going to be most valuable to us, and we're going to be going for that. We are annexing these guys right now, so the annexation will probably finish before we can get anything else done, but then maybe we subjugate Brittany, probably a little bit too expensive, so probably just feeding Normandy the entirety of the French coast up here, which will give them quite a bit more territory, and will be a juicy annexation for us eventually, soon. So it is very nice for us that our king here dies. We get a new king. It's not that we really hated this king. His stats are actually even slightly better. It's that we get off of having that, so now we can actually recruit up an army. Very cute. We will put this guy in charge of the navy for two reasons. One, we want him to roll a naval trait, but also two, this is going to give us a hefty amount of crown power, except for he's not around. Okay, well, we will, when we can, assign him over there. But now, we can actually recruit an army back up, and I think that actually we're going to hold off, because I think we're just going to build a bunch of cannons, and then just use cannons for utility, and then use our levies for the purposes of actually fighting, because they're so strong. We don't really need a fighting force, and so this will be nice for us. We have banking spreading too, so that's probably what we're going to be going in on next. Alright, so we pick up 2 techs in the kind of vanilla tree for blockade efficiency and prosperity recovery, and then we just wait, letting our research build up until we get our institution here for banking, which we will accept right away. Only 26 stab hit, courtesy of us pushing innovative some more. And so we will take that, and then we will go into banking, our very favorite for England, because we have access to docks, and then we have access to barks. Barks will enable us to really start to push way more than we are our maritime presence. And so this is going to be the #1 priority, and is, I think, the only thing that is absolutely critical on the left side of the tree. Protected harbor is actually maybe worth just picking up. Look at the extra harbor capacity. That's going to be 10% proximity reduction on incoming locations for getting proximity. So actually, I do think protected harbor is going to serve us very well. It didn't used to be as good, but now it is quite good. And then I think what we're going to be going for is a scrum of texts that are very good for us. I think we're going to go for the counting house first. And then we're going to go for rag paper. And rag paper, what this allows us to do is use cotton to make paper, and we are really good at making cotton with the wool, and we don't necessarily need trade range that badly, although we do want trade range quite badly. And then we maybe push bureaucracy. I'm not entirely sure whether we want centralized or decentralized bureaucracy. We do want more prosperity. I think we're getting prosperity kind of from free subjects, so that's mainly going to be our source of prosperity, so maybe we go decentralized, get additional progress towards centralization. The fact that I'm not sure which one we're supposed to go, I think means what we're going to do is we're going to push for this instead, and then we will go for maritime presence. And then the Pound Lock Canal, and then, as we always forget, the literacy is down here. So the literacy should probably get a little bit more prioritization, because it'll help us research everything else faster. We are above 25 crown powers, so we can hold off on this a little bit, and the rag paper. But I do think we definitely want to go for docks and bark and protected harbor first, because that's going to help us out a whole lot. And then this will make us research faster. Do like Thirst for Knowledge. The literacy is really strong early on, and then it starts to get diluted out by the increased institutions mod, and you just start having so many percentage modifiers, and the flat cost of tech increases such that it represents, like, per 20 years how many techs you get, this type of thing. It represents a lot less, but early on, which we are, it is going to be pretty solid. We get a nice little event here in Innovation Wave. 10 years, we will get... Oh, we can't even see that because it's blocked. For 10 years, we will get monthly research progress, institution growth, and very importantly, monthly progress towards innovative. So what we could do is we could use that to push even further. We currently have a cabinet member, or we have this entire time, changing social values, basically. And so we will bring this person back to innovative, because with all that, we will be able to get up to 66, which is going to feel really, really nice. For the max literacy, the cultural influence is going to start coming into play. We maybe have a chance at cultural hegemon next age, but that is going to be next age, and things are coming along quite well. We have about 1 year left in the first 50, and so we'll probably just be mainly chilling that till then, unless France decides to no CBS, or to truce break us rather, because we do have a truce with them past the 50-year mark. So we do annex these guys down here. Now, there aren't really roads set up yet, but we do have pretty good proximity down here. We have around 30 proximity, and comparing that, that's like the same as Oxford, right? And so the naval kind of situation of England is kind of being brought to bear, even though we don't yet have what we really, really need, which is the combination of docks and barks. Barks, of course, giving us a ship with quite a bit more, a maritime presence here. That will be useful for us, but this is going to be pretty good, and you can see we even have a decent amount of proximity in Brittany, and compared to like what we have in Wales and this type of stuff, all of this land in this northern area is going to be much more useful for us, especially Flanders. Once we annex it, is going to be quite strong. I think this is kind of the story of England, or like the thing to really focus on in England, is that getting this naval proximity out. I think we also did a decent job here, kind of breaking up France. I know it's very border gore-ish, this entire formation here, but just taking a look at their control and then their proximity, you really get an idea of what's going on here, and how effective this is, and also how effective it is for us to be using our subjects' CBs. They're making CBs, 4 claims on this with their spy networks, and then we get to use that instead of the much worse CB, and so that is going to be, kind of the best way to proceed, I think, generally speaking. I don't think we necessarily need to PU them right away either. I think we could just keep on bleeding them down, taking a bunch of territory off of them, and then if we do eventually PU them, just feed them back this one location, so that they can actually get proximity, which is kind of cute, a little bit of an interesting idea. But I think we're going to conclude the episode here. We are going to be continuing this run because you guys voted for continuing on England, and so we're going to get to see kind of this story where we have several power bases, one in Antwerp, one down here, not in Carville, I think we're going to move it inland some, and one in Bordeaux, and how we can really, really get this massive kind of spread of areas with relatively high control, pretty high control, and pretty high market access, and this is going to be very, very lucrative for us. Also did want to point out, we have been urbanizing a little bit, and not really pointing it out too much, but the places we've been urbanizing have been primarily non-wool, or entirely non-wool locations, places with particularly high population, and coming in with us getting the Poundlock Canal, we probably will start focusing on urbanizing along this river all the way to Bristol, although I do think Bristol is generally speaking going to be easier to get proximity to via naval once we get full maritime presence around here. Once we get a certain level of roads, going through to Bristol will be faster this way, in which case, or at which point, our harbor capacity in Bristol really matters, because we maybe want to go through a road and then push out the Bristol harbor, but I do think that time is probably really far off, and maybe with modern roads, something like that. Interesting infrastructure that we have going on here, but this is our urbanization. Probably next episode we're going to start turning a bunch of these into cities up here too, once we run out of really good places kind of in this area where we have reasonably high proximity. Once we run out of reasonable places for there, we are going to probably start upgrading to cities. So kind of in this loop area here. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, do the YouTube algorithm thing. If you have not bought the game already, or you want to buy any Paradox title and use our code GENERALIST in all caps on the web store, it doesn't save you any money, but it does send 12% of the sale our way. So if you wanted to support the channel, that is the cheapest way of doing it, but only if you're already going to pay full price anyways. And other than all that, have a good one, you guys. Bye-bye now.